Okay, so today I thought I would show you how I clean keyboards. This keyboard that I received with this computer, the keys were pretty yellow and they're absolutely grimy. So I'm also going to try retrobrighting this with liquid peroxide diluted with water. And it's a big, beautiful, sunny, hot day today. So instead of using the black light, I'm going to leave this out in the sun. So I haven't used the peroxide in liquid form, so this will be new. So why don't you come along the trail with me and see where we go. So I already have most of this taken out. The reason I didn't finish is I wanted to show you an easy way to take the keys off. Screwdriver, knife, all that, you know, is okay, but you risk breaking these stems. So these things are very inexpensive. I would suggest maybe looking at investing a couple of bucks in one of these. They're key pullers. So the way that this works is you basically take these two pieces and you put them on each side of the key, and then they work themselves in underneath the key, like so. So then you pull. Now there's a little trick to it. If I was to do it just like this and just let it go all the way under the key and pull it out, you're gonna see I pulled the spring out with it. But if I'm not careful with how I take this key out, the spring will end up sticking itself to this thing, and sometimes it gets trapped in there. You kind of have to unscrew it. You know, other times you can just pull it out. But in my case, I've done this so many times that I'm used to, basically, I already got the hang of it, where I keep my finger so it never kind of closes all the way. That way it doesn't wrap around the spring. I just keep my finger to keep it open enough to where it latches just around the edges of the keycap without getting tangled up with the spring. Okay, just like that. So now if you pull it out, I'm going to put this close to the table here. So now if you pull it out while you're keeping your forefinger separating the thing, you can see the spring doesn't come with it. So if you do it vertically, the spring will usually stay there. It makes it so much easier, so you don't have to sit there untangling springs left and right. So, and then once you get the hang of it, I mean, it's pretty easy to just go through this whole thing, an entire keyboard, pretty quickly. See how that works? So the larger ones, there's the stem only on one side. So you just kind of put a little pressure on the one side that the stem is on. Okay. So there we go. So the springs, I basically put in this little jar. I'm going to fill this jar with a little bit of simple green and put the jar in the ultrasonic cleaner. The keys, I'm also going to put into the ultrasonic cleaner, clean the keys at first. Once the keys are cleaned, I'm going to, you can find this on Thingiverse and 3D print it, but you can see I can put the keys, all the keys on here, and then basically I can put this in my Retrobrighting tin. So you'll see how that works. In the meantime, obviously this is going to need a bit of cleaning, so we'll get to that. Now the space bar, you can see there's a little metal rod that goes from side to side, and also there's a spring in the middle. So the little rod pops into this little black thing. There's a gap on the top, so I usually just take this guy here, fit it underneath the rod like so, and then twist and you can hear it pop out. Do the same with the other side, and then twist to the right. You can hear it pop out. And then all that's left is the stem and the spring in the middle. And with that, I just use both hands, pop it off, and there you go. Keep in mind, this has got an angle to it. The longest angle is to the front, and the spring has to be facing the front. So when you put it back, sometimes the spring flips to the other side, then you make a mistake, put this the wrong way. So just keep that in mind. That confused me a couple of times in the past. So giving you that tip right now. The rod goes to the front, and the long side here goes to the front. Okay? So there you go. I keep the spring for the space bar aside because the spring to the space bar is a little bit longer than the spring to the keys. So I usually put that aside. Okay? Okay, I wanted to give a word of caution on the different keyboards. So I've been pulling the keys from 64C keyboard, the one with the white keys. But the brown keyboards are a little bit different in a couple of respects. First of all, this is the keyboard that I was pulling keys from, which is a 64C type of keyboard. When I mentioned that I was pulling the space bar and I had to pull the little metal rod from the bottom out, note that I put in the little keycap puller and twisted. And as you can see, this has these little grooves vertically. So when I twisted it, it popped the little metal space bar clip out of each one of these grooves upwards. But be careful, you can't do that on the brown keyed keyboards. You should always look underneath your space bar and see what kind of clips you have, because this is from a brown bread bin, and you can see that the clips are different. If I try to pull that metal rod vertically upwards, I will snap this top piece. The metal bar for the space bar on the brown C64s get pulled towards you. In other words, they get pulled towards you horizontally. And you have to be really careful because these little pins do not look sturdy at all. So I wouldn't force it. I would just kind of pull it gently. You could, on the other hand, just take apart the whole keyboard, leave the space bar on. These two little clips that are on each side, there's tabs here underneath that you can push together, and it'll allow these two things to pop out, and then you can pull the center part of the keyboard off of here just like a normal key. So, you know, you could do it that way, and then you'd have to push these back in again, you know, or take them out and then, you know, pry them off of the little metal rod. At least you'd have a lot more freedom to do it, you know, freehand. So keep in mind, don't do what I did with the white keyboard and vertically twist that little rod up. You will break these pins. These go horizontally towards you, not vertically up. Okay? So that's one. Two, notice that on the 64C, the shift lock switch is different than the Commodore 64 brown bread bin. The keycap just mounts right on top of here, and this mechanical switch is just a little bit, you know, it's just a little bit different, and you'll see what I mean in a second. This is the mechanical switch from the brown bread bin, and you can see it's nothing like the 64C. So in this case, there's the keycap holder, and you unsolder this from the bottom, and it pulls up. So this has a spring inside it, and that's what allows it or helps it to come back up when it's normally open. So note that you do have two different types of switches that are distinct. This is typically the brown bread bins, and this is typically the 64C white white keyboards. Okay, just wanted you to be aware of the differences there. But the main thing is be careful with that metal rod on the space bar. Make sure you take a look at it before you decide to pull it up, pull it down, pull it sideways, whatever, and make sure you know the direction that you need to pull it to get it out of the little tabs. All right, there's your word of warning for the day. Okay, so I got everything in the ultrasonic cleaner. Basically what I did is I put the keycaps in a sealed plastic bag with Simple Green and water. It's like a 50-50 mixture of Simple Green and water. Same 50-50 mixture of Simple Green and water, and I put them in this, and I put the springs in this glass jar. The ultrasonic cleaner works through plastic and it works through glass. So this way, I keep all the sediment inside the glass jar or inside the plastic bag instead of having all the sediment drop to the bottom of the tank. It just makes the tank easier to clean. Once I have these in the basket, I fill up the tank with water up to the water line here. The key is you have to make sure that all of the things that you want cleaned are underneath the water. Okay, so that's where everything is at. So I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to leave this in here for about 12 minutes. And we'll be back. All right, I'm down to the last seconds here. And you can see the water's kind of murky, so obviously it did its job. We take out just like one of these springs here. You can see how nice and shiny that is. So it definitely did its job on the springs. So what I do with the springs, this has a little film of that Simple Green. Actually, it's not Simple Green that I'm using Mean Green. Mean Green, that's what it is. So what I got to do to take that little film off is I'll just shake it around in distilled water. Okay, so that'll be that. Let's see how these keys turned out. Get one of these keys out here. So that didn't turn out too bad. Still just a little yellowing. That's what we're gonna Retrobright out. But a lot of the gunk is gone. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy with the 12 minutes that we spent. I don't think I need to put it in there anymore. So I'm just gonna do the same thing with these keys, shake them up in distilled water, and then we'll pop the keys onto here, and then I'll show you what I'm gonna do with hydrogen peroxide and water. It's a little windy here today, so hopefully the audio isn't too bad. So I have all the keycaps on this keycap holder, if you will. You can get this in 3D printed out. You can get the STL from Thingiverse. So I'm going to mix about 50-50, half water and half of this peroxide here. I could just gotten a smaller container and wasted less of this, but stuff isn't that expensive, so. And I'm using distilled water. Well, let's see how this goes. One thing that you didn't see me do, which you really should do when you're working with this stuff, is wear gloves, because your fingers will turn white if you touch the peroxide, even if it's diluted with water. So make sure you do that. All right, so let's leave this and See what we got in a couple hours. Okay, while we're on the subject of restoring keys and retrobriting, questions I get asked a lot is, hey, what about the brown keys? Can I retrobrite the brown keys? Well, this is what happens with the brown keys. I have a stack of brown keys I'm going to be retrobriting, so I'll show you how I do this. But the problem with retrobriting brown keys, from my experience, is, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but it clouds up the brown. And it's kind of unsightly. So I don't retrobrite brown keys. What I do though is I will, so it's not exactly 100% true, I will dab on some peroxide on the top part where the lettering is. I won't do the front. You could maybe try the front, you know, where there's lettering in some of the keys, but I don't really do that. But I will put some on the top, and I will put it under black light for a couple hours. So you can see, putting it on the top, it'll whiten the letters. If it does cloud a little bit of the key, it won't be that noticeable. And you can clearly see the difference. This is the before and this is the after. So that's how I handle retrobriting brown keys. I don't retrobrite the entire key. I just do take a Q-tip and put some peroxide just on the top lettering. Okay, so there's one tip. The other is, what do you do with keys where the stem has broken off inside the key, like these? So what I do with those is I take a 2 or 2.5 millimeter drill bit, and I drill a hole in the center of it, and I put a screw in, and that screw will hold the center. So when you're drilling, you better take out, you better only be seeing black plastic coming out of your drill bit, because that's the center. If you start seeing white, your drilling is off. So you want to kind of drill in the middle of this thing. You could take a nail, heat up the nail, and push the nail in the center to create a little tiny indentation, and that way it keeps your drill bit from sliding around a lot. So let me see if I can just do this here real quick without having to go through all of that. All right, there we go. So don't know if you can see that, but that's in the middle, and you can see black plastic. You can see the black plastic coming out, which shows that I'm drilling in the right spot. Okay, don't go too deep, but deep enough. So now that the hole is there, I take a small, tiny screw that's self-tapping. Okay. And then I screw it into the hole I just drilled. And let the tapping take its, let the screw do its tapping. Once it's in there kind of snug, you can take a pair of pliers, okay, grab the screw and push the screw and pull the screw out from the keycap, okay? All right. So there's the keycap. And there's the screw. Yep. Lost the screw. There it is. So, all right. So that's how you can take a broken stem out of your keycap. There you go. Okay. Hope that helps you a little bit if you didn't already figure that one out. All right. So let's go check on our white keys, shall we? All right. Well, I tried this clear peroxide with water in a 50-50 mix, left it in the hot sun today for about 4.5 hours, and quite honestly, I'm not that impressed. There's still some yellowing. I mean, if you look at the letter T, for example, I don't know the camera how well it can pick it up, but it's obviously dark still, you know. A lot of these keys might have lightened up a little bit, but again, not impressed. So I think I'm going to go back to my tried and true method of just putting it in an aluminum box, a box with aluminum foil inside and a black light on top, and leave it there for about 5 or 6 hours. And let's see how that does. Okay, so let's just go back to my method of doing this. So this is what I'm going to put in the box. I'm going to go ahead and line this with aluminum foil. And I'm going to use the cream. Okay, we don't want the peroxide here to dry up. So the next thing we're going to do is cover this in saran wrap. Keep the moisture locked in. So now we're going to take this and put it inside our box that's lined with aluminum and aluminum foil, and turn the black light over it and just leave it for about 5 or 6 hours, and then let's compare and see what happens. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. It's been overnight that we left this black light on. Looking a heck of a lot better than what the sun did, that's for darn sure. And well, can't blame it on the sun, but it looks a lot better than what the peroxide and water did. And maybe I just needed a higher mixture of peroxide with the water when I put it in the sun. Don't know, but I think I'm going to stick to my tried and true way of just putting it in a box with the black light, leaving it overnight. So let me wash this off and we'll put it on the bench and we'll take a closer look. All right, so here we are with the end result. This is from my what I call my Retrobrighting box. So this looks really, really good. I might put the letter T in there for just a little tiny bit longer, but all of the keys came out clean. No blotching, no marks. Yeah, this is just excellent. They look like new. So my lesson learned is I think I'm going to continue just to Retrobrite using my inside the house system with UV light, aluminum foil, and saran wrap using the 40 cream. So there we go. So all that's left now is to basically put the keys back on the keyboard, put the springs back on, and get this thing back together. So I'll wrap the video up with the final look at the keyboard once all the keys are in place, and we'll call it a day. Okay, as a little bonus, I thought I would show you how I go about retrobriting the brown keys. You're going to see basically how yellow these keys are, but you notice the fronts are white because the fluorescent light hits the top of the keys, and that's what yellows them. And then the front of the keys have been spared turning yellow. So that makes it even an easier thing for us to do, because I'm just going to take a Q-tip and I'm just going to lay some peroxide only on the top part. Otherwise, as I showed you earlier in my videos, it'll cloud up the brown. So we're only after making the top white. I also put a previous key that wasn't exactly fully whitened, so that way we can leave it in there a little bit more time, and the shift lock key. So without further ado, make sure you don't get any of the peroxide on your hands or fingers. It'll turn them white. You should wear gloves to be safe. I've done this plenty of times, and that's no excuse for not wearing gloves. But we're not gonna go hog wild here. Okay, I think that'll take care of that. What we'll do now is just cover this up with the saran wrap to seal the moisture in, because the trick is not to let the peroxide get dry, right? And then we'll go ahead and put it in our box. All right, so let me pour this excess peroxide back. And let me put it in the box. You've seen the routine, and we'll come back in about 6 hours and take a look and see how the keys fared. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so it's been about, I don't know, about 7 or 8 hours that this has been under the black light. And I think we can probably leave it in there just a little bit more. They are a little bit whiter. I'm just going to put a little bit more peroxide on it. Some of it looks like it's drying up a little bit. So we'll do that, and we'll leave it another 5 hours or so, and then we'll try again. They are becoming a lot more white, and I see a lot less yellow than I did before. So that's a good thing. I just think we just need a little bit more peroxide and a little bit more time. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is the result of 24 hours in our aluminum lined box with peroxide. You can see all of them have a nice shade. All of the keycaps now have a nice shade of white. Again, we only put peroxide on the top part, so there's no blotching along any of the brown, and all the lettering now are a nice shade of white. So, hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to the different ways you can retrobrite. That's how I do it. I prefer to do it indoors. Just leave the black light on for, 15 to 24 hours, and, out comes the really nice result. So I'm going to put this back on the keyboard, put that all together again, and we'll wrap this up. Okay, I think we can wrap up this video now. I think we did pretty well. We retrobrighted all the white keys here completely, and they came out looking fabulous. But then I also showed you how to retrobrite the brown keys, just retrobriting the top. And where we started were yellow letters, and now everything is pretty nicely white, and no blotching on any of the keys. This came out, exceptionally well. Even the function keys have a nice white to them. So there you go. I hope you got something out of these videos. You don't need sunlight. You can do this inside with peroxide and a black light. And yeah, hopefully you got something out of this, and it inspires you. So that's the end of it. I think one of the videos for the future is going to be changing the colors on the white. It's not going to work on the brown, but on the white. You can change the color of these keys by using RIT dye, R-I-T-D-Y-E, RIT dye. The trick to that is you need to put the RIT dye in boiling water, and the water has to be kind of hot, but it can't be so hot as to melt the keycaps. So That should make for an interesting video in the future. So I'm thinking about putting something like that together. Again, blasphemy that we would color the Commodore keys, but you know, something to think about going forward. So I hope you enjoyed the videos, and like I always say, you only live once. Seriously, enjoy life. It's short. Take care.